Kaboom is a very fun, engaging, and unpredictable erotic drama by auteur Gregor Raki, and explores issues of both modern sexuality and crazy doom cults. Smith, Thomas Dekker, is a college student with an undeclared and very fluid sexuality. He has a crush on his surfer dude roommate Thor, Chris Silka, has a fling with a black hunk on the beach, and is attracted to a guy named Oliver, yet has a hot girlfriend named London, Juno Temple, and a lesbian best friend, an occasional friend with benefits, named Stella, Haley Bennett. As Smith and his friends express and work out their sexualities, he finds himself investigating visions, strange disappearances, and a far-reaching secret society. In other words, it's like Short Bus, but simulated, then psych, it goes Indigo Prophecy on your asses, and a little Hotline Miami too in the Animal Mask Man. The grounded portions of the film are genuine and oddly sweet, and the core cast of Dekker, Bennett, and Temple work well together. Dekker has relaxed, affable charisma as Smith and safely treads the line between an awkward, uncertain protagonist and one who is listless and inactive. This also gives him room to develop and become driven and proactive for the climax. Stella, who I think looks a bit like a young Rosamund Pike, is an enjoyable foil for Smith, sassy and curt yet deeply caring under the surface. The subplot involving Stella grappling with an orgasm-superpowered witch, Roxanne Mesquita, feels a little out of place, but nevertheless it's amusing and tense as you witness the witch's sultry vindictiveness at being dumped. I've been a fan of Juno Temple since Magic, one of my favorite films of 2012, and here she emanates an alluring, commanding presence that juxtaposes cheekily with her posh accent. The dialogue is quite natural, capturing American teen lingo and post-hippie culture without forcing it. I'm not sure if that term formally exists, but by post-hippie I mean young people in a liberal, drug-friendly, wide-loving zeitgeist, but long after the actual hippie movement. The interactions feel convincing and tender, and even without a strong personal impetus, it's just satisfying to watch this motley bunch foster connections, emotionally and sexually. Kaboom also gets you thinking about your own sexuality. London brings up the Kinsey scale, developed by psychologist Alfred Kinsey in 1948 as a scale for sexual orientation. 0 is exclusively heterosexual, 6 is exclusively homosexual, 3 is bisexual, and there are intermediate ratings between all of them. There are certain limitations to the Kinsey scale, as it doesn't take into account gender identity or physical sex, but it's still a very valuable tool for demonstrating that few people fit into the black and white dichotomy of straight or gay. Where am I on the Kinsey scale? I'm in the not uncommon situation of not being entirely confident in discussing my own sexuality. After all, I'm still a virgin at 24, but I certainly know what I like and what pulls me in theory, if not in practice. London certifies herself as a 1.5 on the Kinsey scale, mostly straight but slightly lesbian, but reasons Smith is a 3 or 4, bisexual leaning toward gay. I'm probably the same as London, about a 1.5, predominantly hetero but incidentally homosexual. What follows is some rather frank, honest personal talk about my sexual inclinations. If you'd rather not hear it, skip ahead using this button. I am overwhelmingly attracted to women, and while I can certainly find men attractive, for instance, Paul McDermott, Keanu Reeves, and Paul Rudd are very sexy men, I'm not generally attracted to men. Still, there have been some times when I've seen a really buff or handsome man and gotten a little excited. There are a lot of caveats coming up. While I can possibly see myself in sexual interactions with men, I'd largely prefer it with women, and thinking back, I don't think I've ever talked to a guy with the intent of hooking up, unlike with girls, which I do fairly often. I watch pornography in moderation, and I'm not embarrassed to say it, but male gay porn, and most lesbian porn, does absolutely nothing for me. Except for solo stuff, which I have on occasion watched and enjoyed, as it's basically just other people doing what you do on your own. Overall, my sexual proclivities are defined by a strong interest in women and a general disinterest toward men, which, as I thought, puts me at a 1.5 like London. In light of all this, and my quite predominant attraction toward women, I still identify myself as straight. But of course, our minds and psyches, including our sexualities, are constantly evolving, so my rating could change once I dip my feet in the water. I should also mention that I tend to be attracted to women older than myself, women in their 30s mostly, and probably because I'm drawn to maturity. It's cool when a film like Kaboom compels you to consider a fundamental part of yourself.
Oh, goodness! What do you mean?
The main driving thread of Kaboom, other than the themes of sexuality and connection, is the weird conspiracy Smith gets caught up in. At first I thought that the elements of sexuality and doomsday cults don't go together, but then I realized, of course they go together. The New Order doomsday cult subplot is kept at an intriguing simmer in the background of the personal relationships, with the animal masked men as threatening specters, and the film surprises you with disturbing revelations about Smith's missing father, the identity and fate of the red-haired girl, the motives of Smith's friends, and the reach of the doom cult. The climax, which involves kidnappings and Stella and the Messiah racing to rescue Smith from the New Order, is a little rushed and sloppy in the huge amount of exposition it uses to clarify everything, but it's still a fun and energetic sequence. My only problem with Kaboom, save for, again, the somewhat out-of-place witch subplot, is the ending. If you don't want the ending spoiled, press this button to skip ahead. Smith is revealed to be the chosen son, the New Order leader's exalted successor among his many children. The New Order plans to detonate strategically placed nuclear warheads and trigger the apocalypse, and will survive in bunkers until they can reclaim the destroyed world, with Smith as the leader. Agents of the New Order, having lived undercover in Smith's social circle, have abducted Smith and are taking him to his father for the end times to begin, but in the Messiah's attempt to rescue him, he accidentally drives the agent's van off a bridge. In the last scene, the leader, Smith's father, sits in a white room, looking despondent in ceremonial robes, and finally presses the button, blowing up the world. I think this ending was a mistake, and I'm not talking about the goofy explosion effect. It would have been much more poignant and just as conclusive if the leader didn't press the button. Not reunited with the chosen son as he'd hoped, he and the audience would both know that his cult had failed. This emotional resonance could have been achieved with minimal changes, as the final scene already has a wordless subtlety to it. But as it stands, the world exploding is a little tacky.
And then the world explodes.
Kaboom is slightly messy in its broader conflict, and parts of it are undeniably silly, but the latter certainly isn't a bad thing. Silly can be great fun, and over the past couple of years I've come to really enjoy huge tonal shifts or different tones coexisting with each other. This is partly why I love Slaughterhouse-5, Cloud Atlas, and Birdman. I really liked Kaboom. It's a bright, boisterous, and very touching look at sexuality, and features engaging characters, natural yet witty dialogue, and a healthy mix of sass and sensitivity. It's quite explicit, but needs to be to tell this kind of story, and the sex scenes feel emotionally real and pretty hot, as opposed to staged or excessive, like in 50 Shades of Grey or Blue is the Warmest Color, respectively. The Doomsday Cult subplot also provides some solid, ominous intrigue and twists, even if the execution does stumble a little. Kaboom earns 4 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching. Cheers.